Good day everyone, I'm Honey Grace Gidagar and I am your reporter for this lesson. And as of now, I will be discuss about features and structures of a surveys. One of the most common ways of gathering information is using surveys. And in this lesson, we have two objectives, and these are understand the nature and purpose of a survey and identify the features and structure of a survey. What is a survey? A survey is a method of data collection where researchers gather information through answers from respondents. And the purpose of a survey is to gather information from a large number of people in a set amount of time. Make sure that the questionnaire can bring out the data you need. And lastly, develop a set of objectives and list of target information to serve as a plan for the questionnaire. A survey can be given in the different ways. These are postal surveys, telephone interviews, face-to-face interviews, and internet surveys. And postal survey is a quantitative data collection method in which paper questionnaires are sent by post to potential participants. Telephone interviews are often conducted by the employers in the initial interview round of the hiring process, and face-to-face interviews are common na dyan siya sa tuwa kay usually siya ginagamit sa mga interviews, and most popular and old form sa pag-interview. And lastly, internet survey or online survey is one of the most popular data collection sources where a set of survey questions is sent out to the target sample, and the members of that sample can respond to the question over the World Wide Web. And these different ways of survey is na siya differences sa design, sa format, but isa lang ang ilang ginagamit na questions. Self-administered questionnaire, answered by the respondent alone. It should have clear instructions and questions. It should follow a logical order. The respondents are more likely to answer truthfully when not prompted by interviewer. Interview-administered questionnaire. Example are face-to-face or telephone interview. Questions can be more complex as interviewers can clarify it. And lastly is the presence of an interviewer may pressure respondents to answer appropriately rather than truthfully. And there are two types of questions that can be used to collect information from respondents, and these are structure or fixed response questions and non-structure or open-ended questions. These are generally two types of questions that can be used to collect information from respondents. Basic structure question. It offers the respondents a closed set of response to choose from. Data gathering and analysis are much simpler and take less time to answer. This is the best use when you already have a deep understanding of the responses so that you can appropriately develop the opinions for the answers. And when you don't have to capture new ideas or thoughts from the respondent. This basic structure question is nag-provide sila og answers, mga answers which checkan na lang siya sa mga respondents para po gamay lang ang magamit na time. Then here's another example. And rating and ranking questions. These are used to get a person's opinion on a topic, subject, product, event, or others. Best used to capture varying degrees of emotion or satisfaction on a subject. Rating question. Ask respondents to explain the degree in which they feel about a certain topic. And ranking question. Ask respondents to explain how they feel about something by comparing it to other items in a list. These are examples. Non-structured or open-ended question. Non-structured or open-ended questions are items where there is no less of choice to answer. Respondents are simply asked to write their own response to a question, ideally used in exploring new ideas, not sure what to expect from the respondents. And this non-structured or open-ended question is nagagive sila og question pero ay kahatag og answer. Ang respondents lang ang maghatag sa iyang answer. Like this. Ang respondents na ang magsulat sa iyang answer. Partially structured questions are open-ended questions that has some set answers. However, these act more as suggestions or hypotheses, and that the other option is provided in case the respondent has a more specific answer to the question, which is nagabutang silang others if ever na ay laing answer ang respondent. Like this. Mabutang sila. Yung na ay mga answer, but kabutang sila others so that mabutang sila sa respondent ang kanilang own opinion. A survey is a method of data collection where the researcher gathers information through answers from the respondents. The purpose of a survey is to gather information from a large number of people in a set of amount of time. There are two types of questions that can be used to collect information from respondents: structure and unstructured. That's all. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
So, hi everyone. My name is Maria Alaikal Caballero, and I am the reporter for Lesson 2, Data Collection, Designing a Survey. So, we must know that a good questionnaire is the soul of a survey that can make or break the quality and impact of the survey. A sample survey asking the wrong questions in the wrong way to the wrong people at the wrong time will decrease the quality and value of your survey. So, theoretically, you cannot explain or guide the researchers to create a seamless questionnaire. All researcher has a lengthy list of the do's and don'ts that they have compiled after years of experiences in creating a questionnaire. And also, creating a flawless questionnaire is more art than science, and an example of a good questionnaire has some characteristics. So my topic for today is the qualities of a good questionnaire. So for the first type of qualities of a good questionnaire is we have the valid. It should ask for precisely what it intends to learn. It should be reviewed by an expert on the topic during a pilot test. And any clarifications should be made until the questions is clearly understood. The questions should be phrased in such a way that the respondents understand the objective of the questions. And to achieve this quality, the questionnaire should be reviewed by the content expert during the pilot test, because any uncertainties and queries should be clarified till the questions is clearly understood. So that's it for the valid type of quality of a good questionnaire. And for the second type of qualities of a good questionnaire, we have reliable. A reliable questionnaire should yield generally the same answer if the same question is repeatedly posed to the same respondent within a short amount of time. The questionnaire should be reviewed or revised if the questions are unclear and if the instructions are vague. So this type of quality can be achieved by performing a test retest, administer the same questionnaire to the respondent a second time, and check for consistency of the answer, because any discrepancy in the answers could be due to lack of clarity of the question, and this should be reviewed and rephrased. Good. And so for the third type of quality of a good questionnaire is we have interesting. An interesting questionnaire is more likely to be completed by the respondent, thus having a higher respondent response rate rather. The questionnaire should be relevant to the respondent and are arranged in a logical manner. Of course, making the questionnaire simple will also be interesting, because while building an example of a survey questionnaire, it is better to avoid complicated questions types and complicated question phrases, because Complexity will make it harder for the respondent to understand the question. We must remember that a good questionnaire consists of a clear and concise questions, which the respondents can understand and respond immediately. And so for the last type of quality of a good questionnaire, we have succinct. So questions are straight to the point and only answer the research objective. And any questions that are beyond the scope of the research should be excluded. It is common for researchers to cast the net wider so that they will collect more data regardless of whether these data are important or not. This usually happens when the researcher hasn't properly thought through the research objectives. It runs the risk of having too many questions, and the questionnaire runs into many pages. So that's it for the succinct type of quality of a good questionnaire. So that's it for the four type of the qualities of a good questionnaires. Again, we have the valid, reliable, interesting, and succinct.
So, good day everyone. My name is Angel of Chato and I'm going to report about designing a questionnaire in this lesson. So, the previous reporter already tackled about the good qualities of a questionnaire, and now I'm going to proceed in this part of the lesson. So, dependent and independent factors. Setting the objectives is always the first thing to do when preparing a survey questionnaire. So, when you prepare your survey questionnaire, the first thing that you must do is to set your objectives. So, what is your purpose, your aim, your goal upon that research question that you have? And these objectives must be aligned with your research question. It should be related. So, the topic that is tackled about in the research question should connect with your objectives. It should connect on what you are aiming for. So it can't be that your research question talks about like this, but you are aiming a different kind. You're aiming a different kind of objective. So it should be related to each other. And you must also take note of the independent and dependent factors you intend to investigate. So here is a sample research question. What are the biggest distractions that prevent students in the senior high school from studying at home? So from this research question, you need to set your objective. And to do that, we should begin with having an initial background research. Of course, when you are posed with a question, you need to, you also want to search in the internet to get some idea about that question in case you don't know that question. So, same with this, you need some initial background research to get information on this topic, like what teachers and school administrations have said about homework and studying at home. So, you can also ask your teachers. And once you have done that, identify the things you can learn via survey, and this will be your objectives. So, your objectives can be answered or can be met by your survey questionnaires when the respondents are going to answer that survey. So, to continue from the example, you can ask in the survey what students do at home that prevent them from studying. So, unsa ang prevent sa ila mga distractions that prevent them from studying, and how much time they are able to spend actually studying during their time at home. So if you're able to ask a high percentage of the student population in your school, that could yield a pattern that you can analyze. So you can distribute those survey questionnaire in a wide number of students, and the data that you gather from that, you can analyze those data and diba to answer your research question. So based from this sample research question, we should look for the dependent and independent factors. So independent variable stands alone and isn't changed by the other variables, meaning from the word independent, it means it is independent of other variables in your study. And it also means the cause, and it has a direct effect on the dependent variable.
So based from this research question, the independent variable is the forms of distractions available to students like smartphones or video game consoles. And the dependent variable means something that depends on other factors. So from the word dependent, so nagadepende siya, and its value depends on changes in the independent variable, and this is the effect of the cause. And what is the cause? The independent variable, and the dependent variable is the effect. So based from this research question, the dependent variable is the amount of time the students spend on studying. So the next one is asking the right questions. Once you have established your question, objectives, and factors, it is time for you to design the questions in such a way that it is valid and reliable. So, from the previous reporter and from the previous part of this lesson, we tackled about qualities of a good questionnaire, right? So, what does it mean by a valid questionnaire? So, let's recall it a bit. Valid questionnaire is something like the questions should be understood in a way that the respondent will understand what the objective of the question is. So, therefore, your question should be valid. It should make sense to the respondent. So, you can't give a research questionnaire to a respondent that can't even relate to your questions. So, that is the meaning of a valid questionnaire. So a reliable questionnaire should yield generally the same answer if the same question is repeatedly posed to that same respondent within a short amount of time. So when if your questionnaire is reliable, meaning that when you um, ask the question again to the respondent, they should have the same answer to that certain question for it to be reliable. And the researchers have to brainstorm and come up with the preliminary questions. So, structured or non-structured questions. Decide using your objectives and factors if you'll be using structured questions, non-structured questions, or a combination of both. So, in fact, this is already tackled in the previous lesson, and as a recall, structured questions offer a set list of items, and non-structured questions are open-ended and allow respondents to write their own answers. So, with this, you should choose structured questions if you are already confident that your range of answers is well known and you'd like to focus on those answers. And also, you can choose non-structured questions if you are still if you're still unsure of the information you have and would still like to explore more options through the survey. Options. So, diba, in structured questions, we all know that in this type of questions, there are options wherein the respondents can choose from this option to represent their answer. So, the options given to the respondents for each question should be as exhaustive as possible because this will ensure that they can pick an option that best suits their answer, what they really prefer to answer. And also, preliminary research and analysis is important. So why is it important? Because this creates a list of options that can grasp every aspect of the question. So in making a survey questionnaire, it can't be that your question, the options of your question is one-sided. So therefore, you should do a preliminary research and analysis to cover each and every aspect of the question to cater what the respondent really prefer to answer. And to allow other possible options, the researcher can include other, please specify. So in this quoted sentence, the respondents can provide his or her preferred option. So when asking factual question instead of a subjective question. So in this kind of question, it is important to include don't know as one of the answers because not all respondents may know the answer to the question since it is a factual question. So, if you do not provide this option, you are forcing respondents to answer by taking a guess, which would not be an accurate representation of what the respondent knows. And because of this, you can be called as a your questions could be called as biased because since you are forcing the respondent to answer in that specific type of question, which possibly they don't really know what the answer really is. So it is important to provide a don't know option. Next one is filtering. Filtering is used to guide the respondents to answer only the questions that are relevant to them. So, filtering is used because there are some questions in a survey questionnaire that don't have to be answered by the respondents, depending on the information they provided or option they chose in a previous question. So, in these cases, filtering must be used. However, you should avoid filtering too much, as this may confuse the respondents and make the questionnaire too complicated. And this may also be the reason why the respondents answer the questions that they should not answer, and they may also not answer the questions that they need to answer. So here is an example of a question that is followed by filtering. During the last time that you had a fever, did you consult a doctor? Yes or no? If no, proceed to question 4. So this is an example of filtering. Order of question. The order of the questions should follow a logical sequence. Start with simple questions before moving on to more complicated ones. This is a common rule. Generally, you can start with the social demography of the respondents. So, what is a social demography? So, it is the characteristics of a population. Characteristics such as age, gender, ethnicity, education level, income, type of client, years of experiences, location, and etc. Also, you should explain to the respondents the reason for asking a personal question or make a general statement to normalize the sensitive question. It is also to assure the respondents that their personal information would be used in right purposes. Double-barreled questions. So, a double-barreled question is a question composed of more than two separate issues or topics, but which can only have one answer. So, you should avoid asking a double-barreled question. You should avoid asking two things in one question. You should avoid asking two separate issues in one question, because this will make it more difficult for you to interpret and analyze the data you've collected later on. So, here is an example of a double-barreled question that you should avoid. Have you ever stopped studying to check your phone or play a video game? Yes or no? So you should avoid this type of question. Instead of the previous question sample, it would be better to divide it into two separate questions. So instead of having separate topics in one question, you should separate those topics in different questions. So here it is. Have you ever stopped studying to check your phone? Yes or no? And for another question which has a different topic, have you ever stopped studying to play a video game? Yes or no? So you should construct a question like this rather than making a double-barreled question. Ambiguous questions. From the word ambiguous, it is unclear. It may be confusing to the respondents, and this may be the reason why the respondents may not answer the right question. So you should avoid ambiguous questions and be as specific as possible when asking a question. For example, terms such as seldom, sometimes, and often may mean different things to different people, so you should make it more specific. Also, keep questionnaire items short, preferably less than 20 words. And lastly, ask yourself when reviewing the questions. Is the question clear? Can it be more specific? So you should ask yourself. And here is an example of an ambiguous question that should also be avoided. How often do you visit a doctor when you have a fever? So, based from the options, it is unclear, it is ambiguous, and it may mean different things to different people. Not at all, not often, sometimes, quite often, very often. It may mean different things to different people. And in some cases, they might not answer the right question. right? So instead of asking those kind of question, you should give a question like this, which is more specific. You should provide more specific options. How often do you visit a doctor when you had a fever in the past year? Never, one time, two to three times, 4 to 5 times, more than 6 times. So based from the options, you can see that it is more specific. So you should ask questions like this. Next one is to keep analysis in mind. When preparing your survey questionnaire, always remember that the data you collect here will have to be analyzed afterward. So, di ba, when preparing your survey questionnaire, like it is to achieve your objective, your aim, your goal. So, to ensure this, you need to analyze the data you have gathered. And there are different types of analysis for your data. And there are also different types of statistical tests to reject or accept your hypothesis. So in preparing palangdaan your survey questionnaire, you need to keep this in mind on what kind of analysis you will do, so that you could formulate the appropriate questions for your analysis. So here's an example. If your objective is to find out the average age of your respondents, then your question should ask the exact age. Like for example, what is your current age? And on the other hand, if part of your objective is to categorize your respondents by age group, then you can use the same question but add options that give different age groups. So here is an example given. If you are still not sure of what analysis you will be performing, it is always advisable to collect raw data rather than to immediately categorize them from the start, because this will help avoid problems with analysis after data collection and ensure that all the data collected are relevant and usable. So, collect raw data if you are still unsure of what analysis you will be performing. Next one, format. The final touch for your questionnaire is to fix its format, and this is important because the appearance of the questionnaire may decide whether or not the respondent is going to finish filling it up. Kay if katag kay imong format sa imong questionnaire, it may confuse the respondents and mawadan sila gana to finish filling it up. And also, the title should be highlighted and it should give a hint to the main objective of the research. What is your purpose, your goal? And if possible, divide the questionnaire into sections according to the content. Example, like boxes with bold headings, and it should also flow smoothly from one section to another with filtering if necessary. So, avoid lang pod in too much filtering because that might confuse the respondents. And finally, prepare and include a cover letter stating the objective of your study, affiliations, and how you are going to use the information that you will gather through the survey. If appropriate, ensure confidentiality. So you should keep the information provided by the respondents in secret or private, if appropriate siya. Last one, pilot test. Holding a pilot test is a crucial step in the design of a questionnaire before you start using it to collect data. Okay, this can help find any flaws or mga mali sa imuhang questionnaire in terms of content, grammar, and format. And upon holding a pilot test, first ask your teachers, classmates, family, or friends to comment on the questionnaire because this will pick up any mistakes in terms of content, grammar, and format as what I've said kanina. And if possible, this should then be followed by asking a number of potential respondents to answer the questionnaire and provide their feedback. And lastly, for those questions that you feel may be confusing or sensitive, it is important to ask the respondents to comment specifically during the pilot test. So, conducting a pilot test is really important because this can ensure that you are having a right questionnaire to achieve your purpose, to achieve your objective, and this can also point out any flaws on your questionnaire and to ensure na matama to siya nga flaws. In short, pilot test is indeed important. It is advantageous to you as a researcher. And now we are done with the discussion. So let's wrap up. A good questionnaire is valid, reliable, clear, interesting, and succinct. So these are the qualities of a good questionnaire. Then, the research question, survey objectives, and dependent factors should be clarified before designing a survey. And lastly, consider testing the validity and reliability of your questionnaire by conducting pilot tests and asking for specific feedback on grammar, content, and format. So, this has been your reporters for Lesson 2, Designing a Survey. I'm Angela V. Chato, and my partner is Maria Alaika Caballero. Thank you and God bless.